This episode of the Unredacted Podcast is brought to you by Dragon Forge Consulting. Dragon Forge provides boutique consulting services for federal and commercial clients looking to expand their business in a turbulent time. Learn more by visiting their website at www.dragon-forge.net. That's www.dragon-forge.net.
Hello.
Louder.
I
Get
think
louder.
your microphone's better than mine. I might need to ask you to tell me what microphone you have.
I can buy you a new one. You want me to buy you a new one? Like a good one?
Well, yours, yeah. Give me the same as yours because you always sound better than me, Brian, and it makes me feel bad about myself.
That's easy to do.
So
It's no problem. I we just had this huge snowstorm out here. Did you get any snow?
I heard. No, I mean this snowed in Nebraska, but we know what to do with it, so we're fine. It's like -6, which is not my favorite, but you know, the show must go on.
Yeah. We're getting single digits tomorrow. Not today, but tomorrow we're getting single digits. Yeah, this area always freaks out. It's like if it's an inch. Oh my God!
Well, and the problem is, it's like the boy who cried wolf, though, right? Because it's actually big this time. But see, I'm like, pussies. No, I mean, it's like, I just feel like, but even though I know it's actually bad, but in my heart, I want to be like, nah, it's not that bad. But it is, because somebody said there was ice, and ice is dangerous.
Ice
As someone
is
from a
dangerous.
frozen state, I support your need to stay home for the next week. Schools will be canceled. The government won't work. My favorite is that the government can shut down, which, I mean, we know, right, from like last month, but then it's like OPM is closed. I'm like, oh, we're just closed.
Just closed. Nobody come to work. And then it says maximum telework authorized.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, after like they have already reclaimed all these laptops because it was like return to office now, and you don't need these laptops. I'm like, cool, I have no way of working. Yeah, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. Yeah, I went to the grocery store to get, we had to go anyway. But of course, it was 2 days before this snowfall happens. And if you were going down the aisles, it's bare. Like, there was no chicken. Everyone bought all the chicken. And there's usually like large hams that you can get. Those were gone. And then like all the bottled water, except for like single, bottles that you can buy for yourself, gone. So all the distilled water is gone. Like, guys, it's not the end of times. It's just a snowstorm,
Well, I wonder how those people think they're going to be cooking chicken and ham when the power's out too. I mean, like, I just feel like maybe they need a prepper tutorial on what you should actually buy. For, what can you cook over a camp stove in the event?
There's a show called Preppers.
Oh, is there? No. Yeah.
And it is interesting to see how people prepare for what they view as the apocalypse or some sort of other event. And if you ask them, like, what specifically are you worried about? They have some things that are pretty reasonable in terms of, like, major economic collapse or another pandemic, things like that. But then some of them aren't kind of fully thinking it through. So like one of them, they took a cargo container, like the ones that we ship like goods from overseas. They buried it and then made steps down into it and then covered it, right? So with a filtration system. So it's actually pretty sophisticated. And if you go inside of it, it's gorgeous. It looks like your house, right? But it's like, and it's well stocked and everything. Well, they purchased a generator. So it would power it. And you can't put the generator underground because it's got to get oxygen in order to, fire the engine, and then the exhaust has to come out. So they just kind of put it on top and put some chains on it. Well, they didn't visit the box for a while, and somebody came with some clippers and just took it off and took the generator.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So if you think it's bad in non-end of times days, What do you think it's going to be like end of times? Like you just put your, you don't know exactly where this cargo container is, but it's somewhere, and you were on the show, and they're going to find out who you are, right? I mean, anyway, all very fun. But did you, so you didn't have to worry about any weather events or anything? You just kind of navigated?
No, the state of Nebraska is still at work, so we got you covered. That's why you should relocate the federal government to the Midwest. Hot take, because we don't shut down.
Open every day.
Open. We're open every day.
New Year's, Christmas.
Maximum telework, and
4th of July.
People like to go to the office here because it's Nebraska. We don't have anything better to do, so you don't even have to get mad at us for remote work. We're like, sure, we'll show up.
Well, it was, before the snowstorm, it still was a busy couple of weeks because the Department of War put out a couple of memos that were, I guess seismic is a good word, changing the procurement policy, changing what we call the innovation policy, and changing our 8A set-aside policies, sort of. So did you get a chance to take a look at any of that stuff?
No. So as usual, I've done no preparation for this for this podcast part. But no, correct me. So you're saying policy. I thought it was just like a declaration. Is there an actual policy changing the 8A program to date? Because I did not read that. Right, I saw an announcement, but I didn't see like this is happening. And I saw people freaking out about it, and I was like, whoa, government doesn't move that fast. But are you correcting me on the record here? There is a new policy that's. No, I just thought it was like we're taking a hammer, but I've seen that before. I've had hammers. I've seen chainsaws. I have yet to see the kind of mass destruction that those tools have promised.
You're exactly right. The announcement was that there was going to be a change to how 8A policies are going to be administered in the government, at least in the Department of War, not so much in the totality of government. And the challenge here is statutory. So those 8A programs are written into law. And we talk about this today on the podcast with our guest. We'll talk about it in a second. But that's right. You can't really do what was announced, not without congressional approval. And the interesting thing is, my opinion, I really want to hear yours, is that Secretary Hegseth is not entirely wrong. Like there are policies, there have been practices put in place where you've got a small business that just takes a cut, sometimes a significant cut of a contract, and doesn't do any work. And it's an interesting question, like, are we really helping that business? Are we helping the taxpayer if all you do is administrative, right? And you're just kind of giving the bulk of the work to a large integrator. I mean, the whole reason you give it to these smaller businesses is to inspire, in my opinion, is to inspire innovation, change, and difference of thought. Well, if you're just going to take the money and not do anything, are you really helping?
Yeah. No, I have huge issues with the small business set aside program. And I think it absolutely is a system that is, like most systems in government, needs reformed. It's like a good intention that often, unfortunately, becomes bad in implementation. And so I agree with at least the idea that we need to reform this process, that if we truly want innovation, right, then we should want innovation from wherever it comes from, where too often it does become, we have these certain set-asides. And to your extent, actually, prime contractors can manipulate the small business set-aside program to their advantage as well. So I have too many experiences where I have not necessarily seen it enable small businesses, and then it almost forces people to structure their business in a way to quote unquote game the system, which I don't like, right? Like you shouldn't have to have your wife found your company in order to be successful, to be a woman owned small business. As a woman, I don't get anything out of that. So I just see that there are ways that, yes, for my point, like, why don't we do things a common sense way? And then also, I mean, clearance jobs is not a small business. And sometimes there's opportunities that like we operate in that space sometimes because we are smaller. So even from that, like personal experience of saying like, there's just times when, do you want the best person to provide support on this? Or do you just want a person with the right name and set asides?
It's a great point. And I'll also say that on the other side of it, we're not doing well there either. Like when large primes are given contracts and the team is comprised of a bunch of small businesses, on paper, it looks incredible. Like the capability and reach of this team is impressive. And there's an allure as a buyer. You look at that and you say, ooh, I would really like to have this because I've got all this different capabilities, companies, different personnel from different places. That's really appealing. In practice, more often than not, the prime just holds all that work. They don't give it to any of the smalls because they make more money if they have it on, a large contract. Yeah, and that's when, if you're going to join a team like that, you got to be really picky about who you're going to bring on and who you're not going to, join up with, because you could have folks that really don't have any interest in helping you grow your business. So, yeah, I think we have a special guest on this podcast. We brought in Ty Smith. Ty Smith, we have a more fulsome description of his bio in the podcast proper when we interview him, so I won't repeat it here. But Ty and I connected together through like this innovation network where we have people that were either working in innovation or have some different views on the way to get work done in the government. Really, really great guy and very personable and engaging. And so I think he probably came to the podcast the most prepared for any guest ever. And wow. I told him in advance, like, this topic is complex and there's a lot of detail in these memos. So we're going to have to go through them in order to give people a reference point. He's like, let's do it. He was so excited. And so this particular podcast is a little longer than we typically do, but he did a great job, I feel. And we did talk about this topic. And of course, he's African American. He has his own small business. He's been doing this for like over 30 years. So he has and he's been working with historically black colleges and universities. So he has a very particular view on the value that small business delivers. And so we were able to tease some of that out. But I put it to him in a different way. I think about that program as something that is supposed to drive innovation, right? It's supposed to find new ideas. And we kind of punctured that a little bit. But yeah, I think as we keep doing this podcast, Lindy, we keep getting better and better guests.
Ooh, yeah. Well, I'm guests that prepare. That's amazing. That's something I don't. But I love that because my whole career was built on the fact that I read security clearance policies, so you don't have to. So I feel the same way. You can please read the whatever DFAR, whatever we're going to call it, the small business that read all those policies about procurement because I surely don't want to do it, but somebody has to, and then explain it to me. So,
yeah, my first job in the federal government was as a contract specialist, so I had to go to school. I went to school for it. And at the time it was in Richmond, at Fort Lee. I don't know if it's still called Fort Lee. But I had to, so I was there TDY for a month, going through the FAR, and you had to take a test, like not just like, hey, if you don't pass this, it's cool, go back to your job, no big deal. No, if you didn't pass the test, you could be removed from service. So it was like that would have been rare, but that was a thing, and then I had continuing education that I had to do throughout the course of the year. So, because the law changes all the time and the regs change all the time, so you have to be on top of it a lot. So now, man, I guess the last formal training I got was as a core, and that is now like 5 years ago. And I would say, especially with these policies that are in place now, the rules are kind of the same, but very different in execution. So you have to like stay up on it and read up on it and pay attention to the memos. So I agree. I think if we were adding any value, it's like, we're going to read that for you so you don't have to read it.
Well, and that's what I mean. It does tie into the point here of like knowing an expert and having a friend matters, right? So in this case, in this podcast example, having a friend who like has read the FAR and knows the policies. But I will say that the benefit of, if there are like, of the small business set asides is like, hey, large businesses, you need a friend. You can't just do it all on your own, right? I think we're both collaborative GovCon people, right, Brian? So I feel like the best partnerships I know about in business are people that I tend to only work with people that I actually find to be a decent human being, right? And so I feel like for small businesses, like large businesses really have a huge role in helping out the innovation of small businesses. My question is it the government's responsibility to have a program that creates those set-asides? Or is it just something that companies, to your point, for the sake of innovation and improvement, should already be doing and doing to their business advantage, right? My ultimate play is like, if this process works, then people should be doing it because it is advantageous to small business. Is it advantageous for a large business to have the innovation and agility of small business? Absolutely. How much of that is just like, that just makes sense? Does the government have to enable it? You're going to tell me more, I'm sure.
Well, if anything, the small business set-asides, regardless of the category, are there to ensure there's competition. Like, we know when incumbent contractors are on a given contract, like, it's pretty hard to dislodge them. Like, they have to really screw up badly in order to shift it, because you're comfortable, right? As a government person with let's say it's a services contract, you get comfortable with Steve in the corner who does a good job, and you don't want to take the risk that Steve's not going to be there. So when it comes up, you re-award it because Steve's there and you like Steve. So I think that's really the reason all these policies exist. Whether or not they're for a particular category is a separate question that we do cover in when we talk to Ty. So I'm not going to spoil it for all our listeners. But there are real reasons for why these things exist. They're not just because someone had on a lark just said, oh, sure, we should just do this. It's like, no, it's actually grounded in good fiscal policy, good social policy. So anyway, with that, here's our interview with Ty Smith. 40, some sort of magical.
I literally went back. In order to read things, sometimes I have to take my glasses off. That's how nearsighted I am. No matter what they do with the, progressives, anything, nothing. It's bad news.
Well, I apologize for being so casual today. I do have like a normal shirt, jacket. It's all in my car, but we're moving into our new space, and so, I had to wear my grubby. This is a rugby shirt from my boy, which is a college shirt. It's been washed once, and now it's like I look like I'm a Pillsbury Doughboy wearing this shirt.
It's all good, man.
It's just too big. I'm too big, and it's now too small. And it's the shirt's fault, Ty.
It always is.
It's the shirt's fault.
Never your fault.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
Nope. Somebody washed it, and then it
just destroyed it.
There you go.
And that's it's not all the ice cream that I eat. It can't be that. That wouldn't be a reasonable explanation, right? Ty,
it wouldn't be.
You're supposed to take my side.
I am.
I'm the host.
You're
supposed to take my side.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Well, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Aside from having the honor of being our first guest here in our office space, we've had a lot of news in a space that you and I care a lot about in terms of like innovation, contracting innovation, things like that.
Right.
And so I saw these things start to fly out from the Pentagon, and I'm like, I would like to get Ty on the microphone, and I want to talk to him about all this stuff and to see kind of where your vector check is. And I've known you to be a really thoughtful dude. So I know you've probably spent, I'm going to say this, you're a little nerdy. Just a little nerdy. and you might have spent a lot of time talking and thinking about this, I may also be a lot nerdy. I said a little.
So we're going to nerd out today?
We're going to nerd out quite a bit on innovation policy and procurement. Now, so I worked in the innovation shop at DIA for a couple of years, okay? And then I was a customer of their stuff. But, like, you've been doing this a long time.
It feels like it. I mean, from way back in NGA, very early NGA when I got there in 2006, 2009, there was some time that I spent away working in the corporate sector. But going back in and hearing, like the old school cartographers, like the guys were like just drawing stuff, saying, "Well, we can't do this." And I'll tell you what, where it really came down to is when Haiti happened, and the shop that I was supporting said, "Well, you know, ma'am, we can't turn these maps around it's going to take us 3 months to turn these maps around." Now, and she looked at them like, "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?"
That's crazy.
That we don't have time. Another shop, the analytics shop, turned the maps around in 2 weeks because they didn't follow the process. They said, "So what's the problem we're trying to solve?"
Right. Problem-centric solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If we can solve the problem, they don't have to be perfect. They need something.
Right.
Fast forward to 2022, 23, the Ukrainians said we need something to counter. And we have these things called drones.
Right.
Well, are we going to get the best drone? No, but we need something to counter now.
Now, right.
And if we don't do it now, the mission, waiting for things that could actually do it be perfect, ain't going to happen.
Right.
And so I think the lesson for me from 2009 was really about how do we find a problem, understand the problem, build a strategy that I was listening, interestingly enough, I was listening to Steve Blank this morning on a podcast with the SCBP. That's their acronym. They're the special projects, or I can't recall exactly what the acronym stands for. I can look it up. But he was talking about minimal deployable products.
Mm-hmm.
Not an MVP. Right. In the innovation world, we say MVP.
MVP.
Like, get it out there.
Minimally viable.
Viable. This is deployable. What could we deploy quick enough with enough viability in the field that won't be perfect, but the warfighter can say, "I'm not getting my ass kicked.
Right.
I can do something with this. It's not perfect, but for what I need, because you're addressing the problem, is powerful enough and viable enough for me to take it.
Right.
Because it met my need."
You've been doing this for a couple of places, though. So you worked at Parsons.
Which was old school OG Systems.
OG
Systems. I loved. Omar and Garrett built this thing, and those guys, they had a GSD philosophy, which is get done.
We have an explicit marking on here. You can say shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So get shit done.
Get shit done. That was their thing, and I loved it because I could go in as a solo and work with people that were like the seniors at NGA. "Hey, can you help us out this? What do you guys think? Ty, we got your back." Shifted to Parsons, then it became requirements list.
Right.
Track the contract.
Got buried into it. But then you went, and this is out of order, but Common Mission Project, you did some work there, which was pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
That's how you and I connected, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I loved it because when my first introduction to what was then BMNT, and I tell people, like, don't worry about the acronym because unless you're in the Navy, it means nothing.
Right.
Just work the acronym. And I spoke to a friend of ours, Alex Gallo, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll figure that out." Because I was thinking about, interestingly enough, how I got to Alex. There was something posted online that had Pete Newell and Steve Blank, and some of your listeners may mean something. And I reached out to Steve because I had actually worked with him, 5 or 6 years before that. I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Don't ask me. Go over here."
Yeah.
And I met Alex, and Alex was like, "Yeah, the organizations that you're thinking about," and that at that point it was the HBCU community. Just tell them to bring me we can go in for like $180,000. I was like, "Are you who? What?
Right?
That ain't gonna work."
Yeah.
Fast forward a year later, I was working at NGA, and I'm a consultant by trade, practice, and attitude, and I told them, I don't look in the rearview mirror. I'm looking at strategy, which is out the windshield. They're like, yeah, but we'll teach you how to do that, how to look out the rearview mirror so we can justify our budget with the strategy that we sent to Congress. I was like, nah, I'm good. Went back to CMP, and they were like, can you help us raise money and get in contact with these schools that we don't know how to enter? I said, sure. And so my job there was the director of strategic partnerships. So raise money and build out new university relationships. And that was cool.
Nice.
Things happen, got downsized. And so I'm out here just kind of keep swinging, man. Keep swinging.
Well, and I didn't know this about your background until I was researching your bio, but you worked for HBO.
I did. Interesting story. So my introduction, I got introduced to the intelligence community in 2005 to work at the Fort. I was a contractor sitting on the outside, didn't have a ticket, got a ticket, and it was like, boom, man, big money increase. It was a long time ago. Yeah. I'm sitting at an NGA, and I get this call. It's like, hey, would you be interested in working in New York? No. But I'll continue to listen.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's New York. Definitely not. It's the VP at HBO. Like, I'll be right back. Babe, what do you think?
Right.
Here's an opportunity. Are you sure? I'm like, I got to try. I definitely got to try. And went to work there for a year and a half. And in that year and a half, I figured out, at that point, I was not a VP. I was a consultant.
Okay.
My job, how constituently, I'm all about solving a problem. It's like, what problem are you trying to solve? And they were like, we just want it to go away. I was like, I don't understand what that means. Yeah, go talk to, I'm the SVP, but my manager, not my VP, but my manager understands it, my director. I was like, I was so lost. But I learned a tremendous amount. My job was the vice president of organizational effectiveness. And so how to build an effective organization. But I learned a ton about media. I learned a ton about the corporate world and how that world works. I learned a ton about how people kind of build strategies based on what they think they want. And for them, it was about dollars. I bring that back to the community. It's about mission.
Right.
And so figuring out how to build that, because you and I both know people like, I just wish they run the government like a business. Like,
I don't think you want it to. Yeah.
No, there are lessons. They're correlate lessons. But if you run that like a business, that means that things definitely go away because it's a shareholder issue, right?
Yeah.
It's like I need to take $1 and X that by multiples. When I was at Home Box Office, 2,000 employees were worth I think the dollars was like $500,000 in gross revenue, gross receipts per employee. That's how profitable. It's a $1 billion organization with 2,000 people.
Right.
Really profitable. Convert that back to working in the DoD when I came back in. My joke was, and it's not so funny anymore, but my joke was every October 1st, every organization in the federal government becomes a unicorn. And they spend the next 364 days trying to spend down that dollar. Right? Because it's not about Xing. I got $1 in, I get five multiples out. It's about, can I meet mission? And so what we were trying to do in our innovation work, particularly at Home Box Office, I started, not Home Box Office, NGA, started at early NGA, but once we moved from Bethesda to Springfield, it's like very cool. Never been over there, ladies and gentlemen, go and you get an opportunity to go and look at it. It's a beautiful building. But what we were really trying to do is, particularly in the late around innovation, is with seniors, like how much of a dollar, and we did this with a bunch of folks, and we worked as high as the deputy director, and my team we actually had, at that point, it was Director Cardillo. He came and sat in our class, as well as we went to the Pentagon and worked some folks there. Of every dollar spent in activity, how much of that is spent in overhead and how much of that is spent in mission? And to a person, they said at least 80% overhead.
Really?
At least 80%. 80 cents out of a dollar went to overhead. And we were like, so really? You're okay with that? No, but we don't know how to manage that. Cool. But what if you had a business model, a mission model built on the business model canvas? Some of Here, your listeners might be familiar with that. If we had a model that said, could we map a different way of doing things without shifting money, without moving people around? Just model it and say, what if, right? Design thinking. What if we did this differently? Could we do a 50-50? Because everybody has overhead. You have to.
Right.
Keep the lights on, you got to pay insurance, you got to do all that stuff.
Health insurance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But could you do it differently so you could get a different balance better than 80% of everything you do is overhead? In other words, you and I have had this experience, like the meeting before the meeting, then you have the meeting, you have the post meeting, and you have the meeting that was the real meeting after all the other meetings. And each one of those cost $1. I remember sitting sitting in on some meetings, they brought some outside consultants that weren't associated with me as an employee of either OG System or Parsons, whatever that might be. And they're like, this is ridiculous how much money you all are spending per meeting. Could you do it differently? And I think that that's what innovation really is about. Right? It's not about an invention. It's not about inventing a new thing. We both have kids. I think you have some boys. I have 2 boys. The older one loved Legos, right? You buy the Lego kit, they put it together, they got the Lego, whatever that thing was on that board, and they designed that, and then it just went away. And then they built other things on top of it.
Right.
They took the pieces, they took the Legos, and they built it, and they created something. They're like, look, Dad, X-35 took back. Okay. Fine, just pick them up because I'm tired of stepping on them.
They hurt.
Exactly. But invention is different than innovation. The invention, that's what they did, but the innovation was the additive effect of finding something that you find really important, that you think has value, but finding it that you think is cool, but finding value in the community, right? Yeah. That somebody wants it. Otherwise, it's, and I'm going to, since I can use colorful language, when I was an undergrad, I read a book by the author, a Nigerian author named Chinua Achebe. And Achebe said, art for art's sake is like deodorized dog shit. Right?
Right.
Invention without a customer is deodorized dog shit. Right? Because it doesn't have value. But once you start to think about value, now you can start to think about the path to execution. What does it mean to execute that? And so I think that what we're experiencing here in the DoD right now with the new acquisition policies and the innovation policies, what's happening with NSF, what's happening with NIST, SBA, is how do we get to path of execution to create value, right? How it happens, that's a whole nother subject, but I think it's all is about value, because value creation without value is like meaningless. It's cool, but I got a really cool thing, but then what? Yeah,
and I think, and we're going to do we're going to do a little game, which will be fun.
Awesome.
And kind of because we have some pretty dense documents that I want to plow through, but we don't want to have to read it word for word. But I think that may be the piece that kind of sticks in my brain. That's the splinter in my brain, is that it isn't just about a thing, an invention. Yes. I like that division. The invention, the thing, okay, that has value. Is that innovative? Maybe. I invented a different mousetrap. It could be. Or it's an old idea that I'm revitalizing. Okay, that's kind of innovative. But that a thing by itself doesn't have to be the totality of innovation. I think that's where they're kind of off the mark.
Yeah, it's interesting that you would bring that up. I was a judge for a recent NASA competition. It was called the NASA Patent Remix. And they challenged people all over the country. Some of them were scientists, like full bore PhD scientists. Some of them were students, to go in and look at the patent portfolio at NASA. And by the way, if you've never done that, it's really cool. NASA has a really, and it has to do with Bayh-Dole, 1980 Act of Tech Transfer Commercialization.
Yeah.
And everybody's supposed to do it. I have a relationship with the FLC, the Federal Lab Consortium, the business side. They are begging people to come and look at their portfolio. Now, that being said, caveat, I think that there's things that they need to do to streamline the transition, the tech transfer commercialization process. But that's a whole other story. But this patent remix was awesome, because there were people saying, if I go out and I find a piece of technology in the patent portfolio at NASA, can I take that and convert that to a real life thing? I met a guy who was able to take a a piece of technology, patented. Now it's licensed, right? It's already built. It's TRL. We'll talk about the TRL system. TRL level 5 or 6 because it's already on station in the ISS.
Right.
He took it and said, well, what if I was able to take this thing and it can sniff out parts per billion of a volatile, put it on a device that would allow me to track a metabolic outcome. So he said, we know that every time that you have a metabolic process in your body, you release volatiles. And he said, well, I know, for instance, somebody's in ketosis, diabetic ketosis, their breath starts to smell sweet.
Yeah.
Exactly. He said, well, what if I took that same technology, put it inside of a device, remixed it, and allowed people to breathe on a device to tell them what their blood sugar and glucose levels are? Boing!
Yeah, why not?
Why would you have to build anything?
Right.
It's already there, but what you have to do is take an invention, execute it as an innovation, put it as an innovation so it's executable to create value. There is a pathway, and it is a funneled pathway.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. Well, let's do this game.
Okay, go. Let's go.
All right. So we are looking at this memo that was written on January 9th, and it was entitled Transforming the Defense Innovation Ecosystem to Accelerate Warfighting Advantage.
Yes.
It makes a couple of assertions.
Yes.
So here's the game. I'm going to say the assertion. It's somewhat word for word, but we had to do it for the purposes of this, so I have some ellipses. And you're going to say, back to me, true or false.
Let's do it.
And then after we're done with that, then if we come up with something interesting, we'll talk about it a little bit here. So the first assertion made is our innovation ecosystem, meaning the Department of Defense's ecosystem, remains a tangle of overlapping organizations and confused authority, workarounds built to bypass now obsolete systems. True or false?
True.
Okay, second assertion. Multiple organizations fight for the same mission. True or false?
True.
Industry, third assertion, industry faces a maze of competing front doors. True or false?
Absolutely true.
And fourth assertion, councils proliferate while accountability diffuses. True or false?
True. Caveated.
All right, let's start with that one.
I think it's true because there are these innovation councils, but they're all trying to do good work. Right? They all want to do good things, not just for the warfighter, but if you look at the entirety of the innovation ecosystem, particularly this administration, is like just, again, art for art's sake. It's not just to have the council, it's like for national security. And I know it's warfighter because it's a DOD memo, but what is the warfighter in terms of the intelligence, the national security ecosystem, what does that look like? Bringing them together, I think, so they understand the North Star. Mm-hmm. When we were doing the work at NGA, we talked about, there was a really, really good podcast on Masters of Scale. The guy was talking about zoom in, zoom out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you zoom out and you have the North Star, the one metric that matters, right? What's the one metric that matters? If you're not meeting that, now you can zoom in. And then you can say, this is where it's going wrong. That's where you start to talk about, Lean Six Sigma and all the rest of those things.
Sure.
But if you're not getting that thing, right, whatever that thing is, the innovation, then you can start to zoom in. And I think the councils could zoom in, but I don't know who's watching the watchers.
Which I think that's what they're diagnosing, is to say, I don't think there's a lot of oversight here. Now, some research, of course, you and I did prior to this whole get-together, is that we look at assertion number 3, industry faces a maze of competing front doors, obviously true. So if you were to go today to the R&E Innovation Ecosystem website, they have a list of every single place you can go as a quote-unquote front door. Some of them are service-focused, some of them are field activity. 294.
Boom. It's an incredible number. I remember going to OD&I, because I was part of the innovation team, going to OD&I, and they were like, this is what we think is the panoply of, nice SAT word, panoply of where the innovation is happening. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I just want to, could somebody just tell me where the bathroom is, please? Right? And it feels just kind of nutty. It feels kind of nutty. And so, that 200 plus is just a and crazy numbers. Like, how am I supposed to figure that out?
Nearly 300 places to plug in. If you're any business in industry and you say, I want to work in the Air Force, we'll think of the Air Force. There's 10 to 20 different places you could go. And I think I think they get right is to say, what are we doing here? It's like, well, that's not my job, that's his job. You know, it's this fingers pointing. Yeah. I have this thing I think I can do for you. Okay, so fingers now point in multiple directions. Well, that's not what I can do. That's what I can do.
Yeah.
The other part that I don't think is captured well is that let's be real blunt. These programs work when they have resources. Right? It's not enough to say, I've got a great idea or I've got an invention that's interesting. I have to resource it. Even if it's government.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've got to have staff. They've got to have time. There's got to be something that enables that to get delivered. And if you're dealing with 294 different places to plug in, how many of those have funding?
So it's so fascinating you would say that. I don't know if you're tracking, and I'm sure the folks that are listening are tracking the SBIR STTR issue.
Yeah.
Which is, I was just watching, there's a great guy.
Which stands for Small Business
Innovation Research.
Yeah.
And the STT is Small Tech Transfer Research.
I think
so one is university related, one is the STTR is on the university side. It's a little less complicated. It's more complicated, but more straightforward. Right. SBIR is less complicated, but really deep and all over the place.
Also called SBIRs.
SBIRs, yes, thank you. So right now in Congress, Senator Ernst and Markey are trying to figure this out because they have these things called SBIR mills, where they're like just cranking out just SBIR after SBIR. And for those that may not be familiar, there are SBIR phase 1s, 2s, 3s, TAC-FI, STRAT-FI. Some of us will be familiar with the TAC-FI, STRAT-FI. But the SBIR world is like, and I think it's great for the small business guys that trying to get in of that, where do I start with the 294? That you can get $250K, you get to keep all your IP, and you get to keep all your, and then there's no equity taken.
Right.
Which is like,
yeah.
There's now, NSF has the America Seed Fund, DOD focused. They're moving away from some of what they consider some of the like airy-fairy, whatever that might mean. But you can go direct to phase 2 and get $2 million just to build your idea, just off the top.
Right.
And the way I characterize phase 3 is please stop swiping the credit card for right now. Fascinating to think about how these accountabilities, what you were talking about in terms of resourcing. I think it's if we don't do anything with this resourcing, it could disable our ability to meet the national security imperative because, as I was listening to Steve Blank this morning, what was the purview of the DOD, old school DOD, now DOW, that we are advancing, we are at the forefront of technology, ain't happening. Mm-hmm. But so you end up with, like we were saying this morning, that you end up with what was NASA's purview, now SpaceX,
right,
is the primary carrier of people to space,
right,
versus NASA. Although we have Artemis that's about to go out to the moon and back, but if they could not, if small businesses like we're thinking about, the ones that have like 2, 3, 10, 15 people in the room that are trying to do really good work, that have a really innovative technology that could answer the mail, how do they get funded? Because the venture community is not doing it.
No.
They're not doing it. The VC community is like, it is far. So it is that 5, 7, 8, 10, 15 years, I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get this thing out. It is, I think that this funding, this resourcing around this idea is if we don't do it, the risk is too great. There is a national security risk. I've heard Steve say, and I apologize if I keep pulling up his name, but I think it's important because he's really studied this stuff, that we've moved at the speed of Detroit while our adversaries are moving at the speed of Silicon Valley. Right? We want certainty versus adversaries say, we just need to get something out. We'll figure it out once we deploy. Minimal deployable product. But that takes capital. That takes risks. And I don't know if we have the attitude, I think in the administration, there is the attitude of risk taking, like putting it out there, but we have accountabilities, we have boards, we have regulations. We're like, fun fact, when we taught our class on innovation, we put up the Gantt chart. We said, how old is the Gantt chart? And people were like, I don't know, 1960. This thing has been around since World War I.
Yeah, I believe that.
World War I. And we're still using it to figure out how we're going to build something. What was the guys up in that were doing the F-22, F-35 when they first started up in Boston? I know that Colonel Beach is his name, Bishkovsky, and Beach would say, we started off, when we started this thing, it would be 2 years. Every week we get two things out. But the speed at which things were happening, by the time we really got our rhythm down, we were like putting out like 10 fixes a day, right? The speed at which things are happening, if we can't keep up the speed, we're behind. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for advancement and growth. Did we learn something? One of the things I think that's going to, around this front door, around multiple missions, is are we doing what we need to do to ensure that we're learning? There's an attitude of learning and experimentation about how to do it. Perfection, 10 years the right thing, 10 years too late, and $1 billion over cost or more, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Versus, did we get something out the door so people could touch it, so they could give us feedback, and did we learn from that? And if we don't, what you end up with is an invention, but not innovation, because there's no execution to value. You see how I did that?
Yeah.
Pull the thread.
Right. And what are we seeing in Ukraine? Exactly that.
Bingo. Exactly.
All right. So the memo goes on. So we kind of agree, like they diagnosed the problem fairly well. I mean, it's very short in the memo, but yeah, for the most part, I think they get it pretty close. So now it says the cause of the problem stems from this dysfunction from a linear model, like you're talking about,
yes,
that gates progress through sequential stages as if technology matured on a predictable conveyor belt. That model never reflected reality and is now dangerous to mission accomplishment, fiscal responsibility, and the warfighter. Speed and adaptation win. Is that really the source?
I will go with that entire paragraph that you just read and go to the end. Speed and the last sentence: speed and adaptation win. I didn't have the honor of serving in the military, but I've been around it for a while. My brother was special operations, Air Force, blah blah blah. Both my dad and everybody else. The difference between regular Army and Spec Ops is a world, right? A world of difference. Spec Ops is like I go in and I maintain. I mean, not Spec Ops. The regular big Army goes in and I maintain. Special operations go in and they go, what did I know? What do I have? What do I have in my backpack?
Right.
What do I have in my head? Be able to meet mission success. And I have to do it with speed, the ability to adapt, and to continue to win.
Yes.
Period. I think that where we're going to have to go, not just on the government side, but the entire architecture to include the scientists, the VC, the corporate government, is that the linear model of this happens, then this happens. We just talked about the Gantt chart. It was built to build battleships, right? Because if I wanted a battleship to come out in 5 years, I need to track it back to when I start digging iron ore. When I talked about Beach and what was happening in Kessel Run, that was the name of the organization.
Yeah.
That the ability to push code is a lifetime different than digging iron ore, but we're still pushing code as if we're digging iron ore to build hard battleships.
Right.
It doesn't happen like that. You push a button, and it happens. And I think that's where this idea of linearity falls short, particularly in this in the technology space. A little bit about me and the way that I think, and it was so funny. One of my former colleagues at CMP, when I told him, it kind of blew his mind. I said, in my mind, 1 + 1 + 1 is not 3; it's 111.
Interesting,
right? The linearity that, and he was a former Army officer, was I did this, I should get this as the outcome. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Copy. But in the innovation space, I did this, but I didn't account for this. Now I have this entire thing that I am not ready for. So because I don't have the cultural or accountability or structures in place. I got to make what I don't understand fit what I do understand.
Right.
And when you put in what I don't understand in what I do understand, you've left out a whole series, a whole opportunity of learning.
Right.
That says, oh, I didn't realize I could do that. That's what you really wanted? For instance, the requirements process is so jacked up. It doesn't fit in the innovation space. My colleagues and I who were on this innovation team at NGA, we would go to people and say, when's the last time you talked to people out in the field? Like, why would I want to do that? I have a requirements document. I'm sorry, how old is that? 3 years ago. I'm sorry, do you think conditions in the field have not changed?
Well, 3 years, yeah.
But the accountability said, I get marked on the things that are documented. Right. And I don't have to talk to them as long as I deliver what's here.
What's on the list, right?
What's on the list. And I burn down this list and I hand it to them. They go, great, what are you doing for me? This does nothing for me. To hear people who were in that space that were forward deployed saying, I don't even trust what's going on back home because they have no idea what's happening here. The flagpole is no use to me when I'm out forward deployed because when I'm out in the field, the conditions are day to day. You're dealing with year to year. Mm-hmm. And so you're no good to me. And so the linearity, the dysfunction of the linear process doesn't meet the reality of what happens in people's lives. And so if you can't adapt and you can't adapt at pace and learn and change at the speed of condition, now it is not just a money issue, accountability issue, it's a life issue.
Let me throw something at you just to kind of think about where we're all headed here. I mean, so the notion of having self-service IT, mm-hmm. right? Do it yourself, whatever. Do it yourself at home. You know, it's why Home Depot and Lowe's, they have a business, right? I don't have to hire a general contractor to do this work. I do it myself. And the difficulty of doing those types of projects is starting to drop because it's getting easier and it's being built around that user. Mm-hmm. Does this reflect that trend in the consumer economy? Because now we're at citizen data scientists, low thresholds for generating code, right? I mean, if you use a GPT model today, it can write the code you want. I don't need to hire a developer to do it, right? Is that the future we're leaning into?
So it's interesting you say that. So as the father of two STEM STEM men, 20 and 21, one who is my 20-year-old is an amazing kid. I mean, he hasn't even graduated. He can graduate in 3 years if he wanted to. He's doing front-end development. He's like, yeah, AI is cool, but it's only going to give you so much because you need a human to look at it.
That's true.
My other kid, who is a mechanical engineer in school, God bless him, he's fighting a good fight. He's trying to build a business that looks at how to help developers develop code. He distrusts AI, right? Both of them look at it in terms of, and these are Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Zers, right? 22 and 20. And I think that the self-service is right to a point. I think that I've had conversations with people who are much smarter than me around particularly AI, for instance, that my philosophy is there's a difference between human in a loop and AI in a loop. And it's positional. How do we position the human and how do we position the service? And so if I am talking about AI in the loop, I am centering the human's ability to query, to imagine, to look at a problem. And I go and get the AI and I ask it to help me do what I need to do, the service model. But if I put human in the loop, it says that I'm centering AI and the AI will do everything, and then every once in a while the human it'll query the human. One thing that I think that AI can do very well, it can calculate, it can build things. I need you, like you said, I can query, my son says Claude. I can query Claude. I need you to build me something else. I have a client that I'm working with that I'm coaching right now. She's built an entire website, interestingly enough, on Lovable when she was paying somebody else $3,000 a month for 300 bills. $3,000 a month, and she had to get racked and stacked.
Yeah.
Right? In order to get her thing out. Now for $300 a month, she's literally taking what took her 18 months. She's done it since November. she's been building out. She sent me something yesterday. Could you take a look? And I'm like, holy crap. You built this? Yeah, I built this on Lovable. Because it was me trying to solve a problem that I accessed technology to build it. You talk about Lowe's and everything else. I don't know about you, but YouTube University has been wonderful for fixing stuff.
No kidding. Yeah.
Right? If I can figure it out there, I look at it and I query the search bar. It pulls it up. It'll keep feeding me. The algorithm will keep feeding me stuff till I say stop. It gives me the information I need. I can then go out to Home Depot or Lowe's and I need these things because I now have a sense of what I need versus standing, I don't know how many times you stood in Home and Lowe's Depot and just kind of looked at stuff like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. And I would suggest that what we're seeing in this environment, what they're trying to address here, is that you have people saying, I know I need this. Why do you need that? Because that's what I'm trying. No, I don't want you to tell me what you need. Tell me the problem you're trying to solve. Right now, I think the first order is in the artificial intelligence space, the self-service, like, I have this problem. Great. Here are the things. That ain't it. Great. Go talk to Ty, because Ty will help you really understand. But what does Ty have? Ty has your requirement, or not your requirement, your problem ahead of time. Have you tried this? Okay, great. What else hasn't worked? Right. What else are you really trying to do? I'm trying to do this. You know what? You don't need that. You need to actually do this. And truth be told, from an innovation standpoint, from a facilitation standpoint, sometimes the stuff is not technology. Maybe it's like you just need to get up and go talk to somebody. Go have a conversation with your partner across the way. That's how you're going to fix this problem. It is not technology.
I went to a thing that, and I don't know if they still work, but I'll be interested to know. It was Homeland Security Works, HS Works. So it was a derivative of SoftWorks and everything else.
Yeah.
So similar folks, not the same folks that run those places. And it was a crowdsourced solution set, a bunch of folks from lots of different places trying to figure out how to work with leased vehicles through GSA for Homeland Security missions. So when the nut of the problem was they get these cars from GSA and they have to modify them for Homeland Security investigations, for the Secret Service, for CBP. All those have to get modified with radios and armor, and it depends on whatever it is, right? But then it has to get reverted back to retail ready so that the GSA can auction the cars and get the money back and so forth. So, but some of these things that they're doing were really disruptive to the car because, like, especially for Secret Service, you're ripping out any Wi-Fi towers, all the Bluetooth beacons, you're ripping out everything, right? So they're telling us this whole story, and I'm listening to it, and I said, so the problem is they're going to auction the cars? Yes. I said, this is not a technical problem. This is a policy problem. You're going to sell the cars without those things. That's it. You take out all the sensitive stuff, take the armor out, fine. Sell the cars as they are. Oh, we can't do that. Why not? I can think of 1,000 general contractors who want a truck so that I can haul a bunch of dirty stuff from site 1 to site 2. Or I want to have a stripped down car that it doesn't matter. I'm just going to give it to my kid and they're going to have it in high school, crash it 1,000 times. And, I'll auction it for $5,000. There's a market for this. But no, the whole thing that was within the first hour. I said, why are we even talking about this? This is a policy problem. And the rest of the day was focused around finding technical solutions to all this stuff. I'm like, wow.
It's a great story. My team, the team that I was on, we had an opportunity to go and work with a undersecretary over in the Pentagon. And it was so fascinating. I couldn't go that day, but the team went. They told me the story and they get back. They said that they go over there and they teach them this innovation process, right? The same one we've been teaching to product teams, teaching to seniors. And and it was interesting because they said, well, this is how innovation works. Well, we can't do that. Well, why not? Well, we don't build anything. All we do is policy. And they were like, it don't cost you nothing to and by the way, you don't do it for everybody. You run an experiment with somebody who is low level but has something that they can take advantage of, that you go in and say, try this. We're going to take this sentence and convert it to this sentence and see what happens. And it doesn't become it doesn't become law. It is an experiment.
Right.
It is an experiment. It's so funny that at NGA, the thing that we found was that for the number of people who had advanced degrees in engineering, they could not understand experiments. Like, what's your hypothesis? So
interesting.
Brian comes along and says, the hypothesis is that, my hypothesis is that people just want a beater. They want a beater car.
Sure. Yes.
How might we experiment to see whether or not that's viable? That has nothing to do with us selling a car yet.
Yeah.
Do people really want beater cars?
Right. Or does it have to be immaculate when you auction?
Exactly.
Right.
Who said that? Well, that's our policy. We would talk about red laws, blue laws, and purple.
Okay.
The red law, the one that gets you, get you in jail,
Sure.
end up on Washington Post. The blue is like culture. Everything else is like a purple.
Okay.
Right? It won't get you in jail. That's how we do things. We definitely don't want to, but we will hide behind the purple law. The ones that, that's not how we do things.
Yeah.
What do you mean you know how to do things? Show me in regs where that's at. Well, it's not really this. It's just not how we do it.
Right.
So you're going to say that the FAR or the DFAR, right? We're talking about these processes, dysfunction, that you're going to depend on that, but you only know one part of it. OTAs, we know how to do OTAs. Okay, but it's in the DFAR, right? Yeah, but we don't know how to do it. So we're going to default. Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
What? That makes no sense. That makes no sense.
All right, so we're going back to the memo. So the memo identifies 3 areas for solutioning.
Yes.
Technology innovation, product innovation, interesting separation, operational capability innovation. Okay. So I actually want to reverse these because there's an interesting, and I'm going to read what it's written, because I think there's a very interesting emphasis at the end that then colors my understanding of the other two that, we need to interrogate a little bit. So, starting with operational capability innovation, the memo says, the department must combine technologies and weapons and tactics and doctrine into new ways of fighting that create asymmetric advantage. Cool, we're all on board. Yep. Now, my emphasis, we must avoid a gizmo culture. No wonder weapon by itself creates advantage. Okay? Skilled operators with strategic insight, tactical imagination must find disruptive applications of new existing capabilities that deter, surprise, overmatch, and prevail. Motherhood apple pie. Okay.
Yes.
But I want to focus on is avoid the gizmo culture. Okay, we're logging that away. Second solution for technology innovation. In an environment where basic building blocks are increasingly accessible to adversaries, which is interesting, right? The commercialization of weaponization, things like that. AI, good example. The department must create differentiated capabilities and concepts. Now, this emphasis is mine. That we possess capabilities that change what is possible. When we used to talk about this in the first Gulf War, this was the strategic precision strike. Those were wonder weapons, things that only the U.S. had. Now everybody has them. But like GPS-enabled targeting, laser targeting, things like that. And those were treated, night vision, treated as state secrets, right? Okay. So we're all kind of calibrating it. Gizmo culture, capabilities only we possess. Okay. I think those two ideas have tension. If you're saying that we can't be a gizmo culture, but only we can possess these things, okay, well, doesn't that feed a gizmo culture? Anyway, I'll skip the rest of that one because it's got more motherhood apple pie. But it's about basic research and how we do that sort of stuff. So the first item that I'm making the last is on product innovation. The department must harness the creativity and drive of American entrepreneurs and capital markets who draw from abundant commercial dual-use technology to create reliable, scalable products fielded in serial production. We must pivot from only asking companies to build to specification requirements and must learn to once again adopt and scale external creations. American innovators are building and producing remarkable things, gizmos. Our job is to adopt them faster than our adversaries can copy them. So this is what I don't understand, is how can you say a thing like we're going to avoid this gizmo culture. Cruel. That's an approach. I think I would be on board with that. Just like we're saying, like not all innovation is invention. It can be process. It can be policy. But then the next two solution sets that you put up are gizmo culture activities. How? Tell me, am I crazy here?
No, I don't think that you're crazy. As a matter of fact, in our kind of conversation leading up to this podcast, I had mentioned that I've been thinking about not just TRLs, but XRLs.
Technology readiness levels, for those of us who don't know.
So NASA historically had this idea that if we could think about whether or not a technology was significantly or sufficiently mature, we could put it in terms of level from 0, like, hey, I got this idea, like I'm on a whiteboard and a napkin, all the way up to 9, which is, okay, it's done, we now are on to our next thing, and everywhere in between. But an XRL, in my mind, also, and I was thinking about this working at NGA, was it's not just technical, it's mission and operational. Literally what's out there.
Okay.
Right?
On that memo.
It was on that memo. This was 2016, 17. I've been thinking about this for a while because for me, just having the technology, the gizmo, is not sufficient. I think if we took each one of these and looked at them separately. So what's the operational capability? Separate that from technological innovation. Separate that from product innovation.
Okay.
See them different, or the operational innovation. That if it's a gizmo, then it's art for art's sake because it lives by itself. It works. It's real. It's a thing. We got it. We know it. Full stop. But if it lives by itself, but it's not ready for if it's operational, but if it's a technology that is a gizmo but doesn't have any operational legs, or if it's a product that just how do they talk about it? The product that we may not build, right? That sits out, that we come from the commercial sector, we bring in, is that now a gizmo? Is it operational? Is it valuable? Is it going to create some kind of innovation in the way that we work? I don't know. And so what I was thinking about how this, in these XRLs, as I called them, is that there's a threshold that it becomes useful. Because I think ultimately they're talking about use to the warfighter, which is part of the very first part of this conversation, is whether or not we're producing things that the warfighter, the decision maker, could take advantage of to have outsized advantage, because that's part of it. Are we building things that create advantage for the warfighter? If we don't have these three things, not necessarily in balance, because you don't have to have everything in balance, because it won't make sense, because then if it's dual use, but it has a specific, if you think it's dual use, but it doesn't have operational capability, well, keep it in the commercial sector, because it's there. But if you have high operational innovation that you need to get stuff done, but you don't have the technology, either in-house technology or product coming from the outside technology, I have a need but nothing to satisfy it. Right. And so what I need to be thinking about is, I don't think these are intention, not intellectual. I think they are compatible. It's a compatibility, or compatibility isn't the right word. It's like how do I meld them in a way that I'm providing the appropriate amount, the appropriate level of value?
Yeah, nesting, I think, is kind of what you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they nest.
Yeah. And so if I were to nest them, how do I think about those three things, not as independent from, dependent on each other, but they can't be independent from the need. What's the problem? What's the problem to be solved? So if I understand the problem to be solved in terms of product innovation, if it's dual use, why build it if you don't have to? That's a gizmo. That's a thing. You and I have been around the block long enough that our research R&D brethren and sisterin, they love to build stuff. Who's it for? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's just good stuff. It's cool stuff. I was talking about NASA earlier. They have really cool stuff. Those engineers couldn't give a damn about whether or not they could commercialize it. They really couldn't. It doesn't really make any sense to them. What they really want is to be acknowledged for their patents. Their level of success is, I got 15 patents I've already done. Great. What are you going to do with it? I don't care. That's not my business.
Yeah.
That's where these other pieces come along around operational and technologies, right? Particularly operational. So if I don't have to have a technology innovation where I'm asking AFRL to build something, Air Force Research Labs to build something, I can acquire it from a shop of 10 people coming out of UC Berkeley that have this really unique thing. Why would I do that? I'm going to ask AFRL to build something that nobody else can build. Because if it's dual use, that means other people can either build it or access it. What these guys, the commercial sector, said, I got something over here I think could be used in a bunch of different spaces. Who's going to pay me for it? Can I acquire it?
Yeah.
Government, can we acquire it? Yes, great. Spend your money wherever else you need to spend your money on the technology. And ultimately, and I love the way that you took the memo and you flipped it on its head and you said, where's the operational innovation? That by flipping, it's like, does this support anybody? Just because I can build it doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
Right.
I remember NGA, somebody saying, it costs X amount of dollars for, how many people use this? About 5. We could supply an 80% solution to about 10,000 people. Yeah, but that's not what it's built for. Like, really? You built this thing for 3 people? Yeah, because they need it. Oh, and by the way, nobody could find it anyway.
Right.
Because the systems weren't in place.
Right.
Because I think the other part of this innovation piece is that you have to have systems. Right?
Yeah, and our mutual friend Chris Rasmussen talks about this all the time. When we start talking about commercial imagery, that's a real dual-use tech,
Yep.
right? Because I can use that for real estate estimations, environmental use, fine, it's good. Nobody cares about counting a bunch of tanks at a garrison, except NGA.
Right.
Right? So that's a dual-use technology. I can point it at this and do this, or I can point it at this and do it this. Night vision now can be a dual-use technology. You start thinking about like optics on phones, hunting, maybe something like that. Not a ton of examples of that though, because the government has requirements that are fairly unique and only the government cares about.
So it's interesting you would say that about, and I haven't talked to Chris in a long time, good dude, that this idea of mission sets, dual use, the geospatial stuff. In this, what's the word I'm looking? This stack, this innovation stack that you laid out. If you have commercial imagery, and I remember Descartes Labs would be able to go out and tell you, take a picture. I remember reading about this. Take a picture of a square acre of farmland and tell you how much corn is there and what should be the crop yield. This was 2016 or 17. I remember reading this article. That's fine. Everybody can take advantage of that. But the technological lead on this is what? What do I do? What do I need it for? U.S. government, that nobody else needs it. So why would I go and recreate what's already created?
Right.
Take what's created and then add what I need.
Right.
That's the technological innovation to support ultimately the value of to the warfighter. If these were these innovation markers of technology, product, and operational capability live outside of value to the warfighter, it's just a replication of what we already know. Mm-hmm. It's just a repeat.
Interesting.
Because it doesn't live in anywhere. Just because you can build it don't mean nothing if nobody can appreciate it.
That's right.
Art for art's sake.
All right, we're going to do another game.
Cool.
So now the game is helpful, not helpful.
Got it.
And we're going to go through the solution set here. We'll do a little rapid fire thing. Now, I truncated all these.
Yes.
So that we don't have to read the whole thing.
Awesome.
But they have, let's see here, we've got 7 separate solutions that they're going to do. Okay.
Right.
Solution 1, create a new CTO position. Helpful, not helpful.
Helpful, caveated. Go.
We'll get back.
Yes.
Collapse a bunch of working groups into a CTO action group or a CAG. Helpful, not helpful.
Could be helpful.
Okay. Create an quote-unquote integrated ecosystem where DIU and the Strategic Capabilities Office, also known as the SCO, are made into field activities. Helpful, not helpful.
If it's integrated and true integration with lines.
You're supposed to say helpful, not helpful.
Okay, helpful.
Helpful, there you go. And then we caveat.
All right, cool.
It's rapid fire here,
All
Ty.
right.
Okay, we're going to do a reorganization. Rename a few assistant secretaries into roles in research and engineering. Helpful, not helpful.
I'm going to go with not helpful. We'll come back to it.
Establish a military service accountability. Innovation cannot be centralized. Program officers own the last mile. The ecosystem equips them to deliver. Military service accountability. Helpful, not helpful.
Helpful.
Retool Industry engagement, in quotes. Mission engineering and integration activities will execute problem-driven engagement organized around joint force top operational problems. Helpful, not helpful.
Helpful.
Designate the CTO as a responsible implementer. Helpful, not helpful.
Helpful.
Okay.
Belly button.
So those are the 7 things we're going to go do.
Okay.
Cool. I like this notion of having a place. I think that it's interesting to see the department land on this decision of not merging the Defense Innovation Union and the Strategic Capabilities Office. That was some of the scuttlebutt we were hearing around town, that those things are going to be put together. Really 2 different animals doing different things. I would argue that the Strategic Capabilities Office is less strategic, more capabilities, very tactical, whereas DIU really is more strategic, although driven by activities. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good. Making them field activities is an interesting decision too. DIU has bounced around, being reporting to the secretary, to the DepSec, off on their own in R&E. Now, I guess back with the DepSec. I mean, it's this kind of ping pong thing. So that could change too. But it's nice to see that get some rationalization. I know I'm supposed to let you say what you think, but I'll say I'm going to be cynical about 2 of these ones. This is bullet 4 and 5. Reorging and renaming the assistant secretaries. I'm sorry. We've done this 1,000 times. I don't see a lot of value in doing that. But, if that makes people feel happy or changes a mission, that's fine, I guess. And then military service accountability. Isn't this, I hate to sound super cynical on this one, but isn't this like the battle that the Office of the Secretary of Defense has always fought with the military services? This is the chasm that has existed forever, since we founded the Republic. I don't know what this is going to do to close that.
So I'll never forget my first foray into NGA. I was there by myself supporting this particular office that I alluded to earlier. There's hardcore old school mappers, right? Just came out of St. Louis. And hardcore old school mappers that came out of St. Louis. And it was preceded by what I'm about to say, which was as a result of this thing with Haiti. And they were talking. I said, I'm sorry, aren't you moving the deck chairs on the thing that's about to sink? And the senior at that point, she was like, all right, smarty pants, what do you think? I said, well, thank you. This is why you hired me. And we went on to build a real strategy built on providing a real service for people. I think that renaming without purpose is art for art's sake. Mm-hmm. Part of my avocation around this work is thinking about how systems work. And I have some people that really taught me a lot. And one of the things that one of the constructs that we have is something called BART. Boundaries, authorities, roles, and tasks.
BART.
B-A-R-T.
Boundaries, authorities,
roles, and tasks.
Okay.
Boundaries, the what, when, why, how of where I am and where I'm not. Authorities, what I have the right responsibility to do. The roles, the both formal and informal ways that I execute, kind of either on your job description or the one that just gets piled onto you, and ultimately the task. What am I here built to do? What are we here to do? When one of those is out of position, then you start to get recrimination. Well, only if they did this. Well, only if they did that. But when you really live into your BART, you get. And it was built on, interestingly enough, the train that runs between San Francisco and Oakland.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right? Bay Area Rapid Transit.
Yeah.
A train, the BART system works when you have passengers, you have electricity, you have a functional cart, and you have somebody operate it. If any one of those things aren't there, it's not BART. It's a thing. I think that what you're alluding to is without those clear designations. That doesn't mean there's not adaptive, because sometimes things have to be adaptive. But that is with curiosity, hypothesis, learning, yada, yada, yada. But when those things are not in place, what do you end up with? Well, ain't that your job? No, that's not my job. That's so-and-so's job. We're going to talk to him. I don't know anything about that. because people are confused about what they're supposed to do. So what do? We go and name them. We give them names like, you are now in charge of so-and-so. And so I either take it up fully and I'm now in charge of whatever that thing might be, or I go, I don't know what the hell I'm doing anyway, so I'm just going to sit here and wait for somebody, and then I'll write a memo and I'll drop it off, and then it still doesn't get done. Because ultimately, when that happens, in my view, is that you lose sight of who you're doing it for.
Right.
And it becomes a survival game.
Right.
Because we all got to eat.
Right. This is what I was told to do. I'm going to go do.
Exactly.
And I forgot why I was doing it.
Exactly.
That's why I'm doing it.
Exactly. But I will continue to do it until somebody says stop.
This CAG, this CTO action group, you said helpful with caveat. Why?
I'm going to go back to my experience at HBO. When I got there, they had a CIO and a CTO. The CIO made sure the lights blinked. The CTO made sure the lights blinked to advance the mission, to advance, the shareholder imperative, the business. I think the CTO does not necessarily have to be the blinky lights person. The CTO says, this idea of what's the one metric that matters, zoom in, zoom out. The CTO goes, on behalf of my boss, the SecDef, the Secretary of War, my job is to make sure that we're advancing innovation, we're advancing information, we're advancing opportunity, that the acquisition people come in and like, hey, I need you to figure this out. We need to live in the FAR, DFAR. We need to do that because technology is what's going to advance and create strategic advantage. And if we're not paying attention to it, it doesn't matter how good the lights blink, we're not leading out where we're supposed to go. I think a buddy of mine at NGA was a special operations Marine, probably the most, he's a MARSOC guy, so he's pretty deadly, but he's super creative. One of the things he says, who's the one throat to punch, right? I'm not saying go punch the CTO in the throat,
okay.
But that's the one person I know I can go to and I say, are we doing what we're supposed to do? And if we're not, I need to hold you accountable. But it's not to hold you accountable to beat you up, but to say, this ain't happening. Right. How do we ferret this down, zoom in, right. Not just zoom out, zoom in to say, oh, this is an acquisition issue. Oh, this is an R&E issue. Oh, this is a policy issue. But you ultimately put the chief technology officer in place to pay attention, not to the tech, the acquisition, but on behalf of the business to provide value.
Right.
Ultimately, I always default to value. Always. Because if it's not creating value, it's just activity.
Right.
It's just stuff. That's my thought.
Wow. This is why you're here, man. So we're going to change direction here. And We're going to talk about another policy that has been announced, but we haven't seen any paper yet. This is on the 16th of January. The Secretary of War, Hegseth, took to Twitter, and he posted we'll call it a missive about a program he recently found out about, which we know as the 8A program.
Yes.
And, of course, this references a section of law for the Small Business Administration that has set-asides for what we call small disadvantaged businesses. And this usually fit a category. And you could be an African American owned business, Native American owned business, Pacific Islander owned business, women owned business, service disabled, all of these categories. And in law, we have set aside procurements for each of these categories, or the group of categories called 8A. So he describes in this video that he's going to, quote unquote, take a sledgehammer to it. Now, if you listen to it, and we'll include it in the notes here, he doesn't really say that. He says we're going to study it, figure out how to change things, but the merits of what he's talking about are like, there is a behavior in the contracting world where we've got a small business that might be one person. We used to call this the Admiral's wife problem. Because it would be...
Never heard that before, but got it.
But it's the Admiral's wife. It's like the Admiral's wife, the usually retired Admiral, she's the CEO, so she gets the 8A credit, and then he's the guy that goes off and he's the business developer, right? And so sometimes service disabled, sometimes whatever, right? But they get that category. And they're a shop of two.
Yeah.
and then they go get some other big integrator, Booz Allen, SAIC, and then they sell work through that, and that's how the agency gets the credit for the law, and that's how the actual mission gets accomplished. So here's with all that background, I'm telling you, you already know all this stuff, but like, I want to open up with this. What do you think the merits are of this decision? Is there something here that does need to get pulled into correction?
So I was, when I found out that you wanted to talk about this, I said, let me dig into this a little bit. And so I found this really interesting piece on LinkedIn that somebody wrote that talked about this sledgehammer, if it is a sledgehammer, but more to the point, like what does it mean to your question? I think it really comes down to value proposition. Mm-hmm. So what do we mean by value proposition? Value proposition is any businesses or any person who is trying to sell an idea that I have something that it's some level of specificity or I don't know what other word I'm looking for, but specificity or fidelity, probably the word I'm looking for, that meets your need, right? And so the administration has said that we want to, through the Secretary of War, said we want to do max lethality. How do we do max lethality? Cool. This person was really interesting in the way that they said it, and he characterized it. He said, compete on the capability, not the status, the admiral's problem, right? Being able to forge strategic alliance. How do we pull the thread to find not just the SAICs or the Raytheons, whatever, as an 8A, but what does it really mean? Can you pull together these strategic alliances that you can build out to provide ultimately the value proposition of lethality and effectiveness? Audit your value. Like, what's the value to the warfighter? Right, was another point that this person made out around, can you pivot your capabilities to align to any one of those things that are found to be important to the strategic direction for the Department of War? And embracing the mission, can you really pull your stuff together to make it so that what you are really doing aligns with the fullness of the mission? Can you, Company X, really embrace this in terms of the 8A? Now, when I did do the research, what I did find is that it is not as clean as the optics.
Of course.
Because the optics are always, always absolutely important and interesting. And so I'm going to try to be as nice and candid as I can be, because you invited me as your guest, and I don't want people like, who in the hell did that jag off that you brought? Excuse me. But optics, I think, are always important. That the foot stomp, stomp, it's more performative than it is actual. So you laid out we're not going to, sledgehammer is the performative. The actual is, we got to study, we got to rethink it, does it align? The largest, a little bit of demographic research about the recipients to Native Alaskan tribal and others, 60% of 8As. Oh, by the way, they don't separate it out in terms of DOD. It's just an 8A contract.
Yeah, this is everybody. Everybody in all contracts.
Exactly. Veteran-owned, 9%. So about 70% of all contracts are in those two categories.
Native American.
And veteran-owned.
And veteran-owned. That's interesting.
If you look at otherwise, erstwhile, women-owned, about 3.5%.
And these are awards.
These are awards.
Okay.
FY 23-24, women-owned, 3.2 to 3.4. Black African-American owned businesses, 1.3.
I didn't know it was that low. Wow.
But the optics would say, because of all the stuff around DEI that's been happening, that we're going to go after that.
Wow.
We're going to go after these, what we imagine are the people who are the recipients. But the people that are the true recipients and beneficiaries of the program don't look like me.
Right.
And they aren't women.
Wow.
On the large part. And so what does it mean that when this happens? I think so the merits are, go to where you provide best value. Because, again, Brian, for me, it's always about value. At the end of the day, any innovation is about value to somebody. I've heard Steve say this, and I say it all the time. The only thing that matters is what people buy. Everything else is a hobby. So my the startups that I work with, I literally say to them, if nobody buying it, don't get mad, but it's a hobby, so don't get upset because nobody's buying your stuff, which means you have to pivot.
Right.
Otherwise, you're doing a good service. Cool, I got that. That's fine. And so I think the merit is aligning, but the optics, merit aligning to the mission, but the optics, we've got to be careful.
I'm thinking about how these two policies interact with the other, right? So we've got the innovation policy that it's a little more substantive. There's a lot more action. We'll see what happens with this 8A thing. I think they're probably going to come in the same direction too. They're going to realize, like, well, is the juice worth the squeeze? Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it does. But that data is pretty compelling, right? The reason why these laws were created was because there are a couple of big problems. We were not equitably dividing out what was being given to the American people, and we were privileging largely established large businesses with lots of folks that look like me and have my gender, and we were not balancing out the value to taxpayers in these other categories. Okay, so that's why the law got created, so that we were balancing the portfolio.
Oh my God! I never really thought about this. And literally, you just kind of made a light bulb go off in my head. We know that the 8A program is established in law, right?
Yes,
it is a law. So you have to go back to Congress to make sure that you do something. But what I never thought about, and I appreciate this, and I'm going to steal this, by the way.
Go ahead. This is why we're here.
that it is not a good thing to. It's a good thing to do. It's a nice thing to do. But these are taxpayers as well.
Yes.
These are taxpayers as well.
Yes.
And so you're telling me that, at least for black folk, 1.3% is all that they are able to advantage from the taxes that they pay in, when you have black and brown black folks at 13% of the country. That number that number's upside down. So just from an economics, the economics is astounding. I have one that I want to offer up to you, and I'm going to read this. In FY23, the DoD, one of the top federal R&D funders, rewarded just 0.4% of its research funding to HBCUs.
0.4?
0.4.
Not even 1%.
Since 2018, 0.87, less than 1% of that in FY17. 2023 combined accounted for $539 million, which is roughly 16% of Johns Hopkins. Not the entire budget. Just 57 HBCU received $539 million, 16% of Hopkins. Just Hopkins alone.
So this returns back to like what I was talking to Megan Jaffer about when we were talking about the Iron Butterfly Podcast. Why is it that we have these programs? Why is it important? And specifically from a national security perspective. Our strength as a nation is our diversity.
Yes.
And when we invest in ourselves and we bring that to the fight, we win. But when we don't do that, what are we doing?
To me, it is... let's take race out of it. It is just good money sense.
Yes.
It's just money. It's just straight capital.
Yeah.
If you capitalize, if you invest in the community and that community starts to turn it over to the tune of $500 billion, that's tax money. That's a tax base. It's not a tax burden. It's a tax advantage. Mm-hmm. You're creating space for people to do stuff. Mm-hmm. So I get confused as well. I'm not exactly at times sure what we're saying when we say some of these things, but that's just me.
Well, returning back to this theme about diversity, right? So if I want to be innovative, if I want to tap new ideas, different way of thinking, I got to have a more diverse contractor workforce. So that's why I feel like, I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think on balance, when we start talking about this new innovation policy, on balance, they got it pretty right. Yeah. Maybe some of the remedies won't quite work, but on balance, yeah, it's directionally correct. This one doesn't feel directionally correct to me.
Yeah, I've thought about this in terms of, I won't use the HBCU piece right now, but just the 8A. I have people that I know right now who are like fighting tooth and nail. They have clearances. They have the tickets. They're geospatial guys. They're cyber guys that are doing their thing, that are trying to build their businesses. that if you are concerned, this is a national, this isn't just money, it's about a national security issue. If you are concerned about whether or not you need to have homegrown talent, you want to invest in your homegrown talent. I happen to sit on the NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnerships National Advisory Board for NIST. And it is all about manufacturing, which is interesting because I don't know anything about manufacturing. But when they invited me, I said, I know two things. I know national security and I know diversity. And right now, if you want to make sure that you are building out a diverse workforce that has a part of the national security, you need to go where people are.
Yeah.
Go to Florida,
yeah.
or go to Alabama, or go to Chicago, or go to California, where you can say, I know that you have talent. I'm going to invest the manufacturing side in you. We know we have this imperative around national security because that was part of the CHIPS and Science Act and all the rest of that stuff when I first joined the board. Right. I need to go and invest in these areas. And not all of them are going to be these big integrators. The Manufacturing Advisory Board is literally about SMB, small and medium businesses. The problem is the administration literally tried to close down all the MEP centers.
Wow.
It didn't. This past the reconciliation kept the funding at the same, so all 50 are going to stay open. Because I think it's important, because there's no way from a process standpoint that a Northrop can do everything. They just can't do it. Raytheon just can't do it. You're going to need people who can feed the system so they can build these big integrators. That's why they call them system integrators, right?
Yeah, Federal System. Yeah,
right? Because they integrate all of these things. The 8A program, as it's set up here, fine. I think to your point, if it's process, if those caveats that I laid out around those four things, those are the caveats, cool. The optics, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
I do think there is, and we'll balance it out a little bit here. I do think there's something to this admiral's wife's kind of problem. It's like, that probably is a real problem. How prevalent is it? And they said already we're going to study it, try to figure it out. But I think it's a good question. How prevalent is that? And if you're going to go through and punish everybody in that portfolio for the bad behavior of 100, I don't know if that's the right thing.
I think that people who are really about the work will do the work.
Yes.
If they're really, really about the work, they'll figure it out. It's like, are we solving the right problem?
Right.
My buddies and I, we have a podcast called WPAYS. What problem are you solving? Because if you can figure out what problem you're solving, you can figure out what pays.
Right.
Tongue in cheek.
Someone owns that
That's
problem. Yeah.
So own the problem. Understand the problem. What problem? Not the one that you think, but really study it. Get involved with it. Think about it. Do the innovative thinking. Ask the design question. Be centered on human experience. Be value driven. If you can do those things, don't be afraid to experiment and learn. If you can do those things, you can do wonderful things. You can do really wonderful things.
Well, Ty, this has been fabulous. I really enjoyed talking with you. We were doing all this over email and chat, and so now we get to say all the things we wanted to say.
Yes, sir.
And you came so heavily prepared, and I may have under-prepared here. I don't know.
No, I think we were rightly prepared.
We got it right?
Yep.
It was spectacular. So thanks for being on the Unredacted podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and it's looking forward to hearing more from Unredacted.
I'm Lindy Kaiser.
And I'm Brian Drake.
And this has been the Unredacted Podcast.